James Taylor and I decided to write the logistics white paper because we were seeing increasing levels of investor interest in the logistics sector, and the opaque and nascent nature of the market here in Indonesia is such that information which might be readily available in other markets is simply not available here in Indonesia, and we wanted to try and bridge that gap and provide information to investors and our clients more generally about logistics in Indonesia.
So the business thesis behind logistics is one of scale, which is something that Indonesia is able to offer in abundance. It's the 16th largest economy in the world. It's by far the largest economy in Southeast Asia. It's the fourth most populous country on earth, and it's got a young population that's urbanizing rapidly, and the middle class is expanding. We've seen significant growth in the FMCG sector. It's got a large manufacturing base, and e-commerce, although it remains in its infancy, is beginning to gain traction in terms of growth.
One of the other major challenges we face from an investor perspective is the fact that over the past 5 years we've seen very rapid land price growth across Greater Jakarta, whilst over that same period there's been much more moderate rental growth, and this has resulted in something of a disconnect between achievable and expected yields.
But significant challenges remain. Indonesia is a huge archipelago, which means transporting goods from one end of the country to the other remains time-consuming and costly. Infrastructure badly needs an upgrade, but the challenge that we identified as the biggest obstacle to growth in Indonesia was possibly the regulatory environment.
In the future, we expect to see rental growth outpace land price growth, and that will result in a reduction in that disconnect, and we expect that to become a more compelling case from an investment perspective in the future.
So we believe there's a clear and compelling business case for logistics in Indonesia. Infrastructure remains a challenge, but the government is making a push to improve roads, railways, ports and toll roads. E-commerce sector remains in its infancy but is growing. There are favourable demographics. GDP growth is expected to improve from 2016 onwards, and the middle class is expanding year by year. But as I mentioned earlier, we believe that the biggest obstacle to growth is that regulatory environment, and we do think further support in that regard is needed for the sector to flourish.